Hello, my name is Hamlet Dobbins, and this is Memphis Material, an oral history project chronicling the stories of the visual arts in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis Material is a podcast celebrating the personal histories, the intimate stories, and the studio practices of some of the people who help shape the creative landscape of our city. These unedited interviews are all recorded at the Memphis Listening Lab, a gem of an archive located in the majestic Crosstown Concourse in Midtown. The Memphis Material website and archive were designed by the wonderful Brian Dixon. Now, we don't have sponsors for these podcasts, but if we did, today's interview with Frank D. Robinson would be sponsored by Spider-Man. Unfortunately, Frank was unable to come into the Memphis Listening Lab, but fortunately, the Rodecaster Pro in the production room does have a Bluetooth setting, so I was able to run my phone through the board. Now, the interview with Frank D. Robinson was recorded on January 7th, 2025. Enjoy the interview. Frank, what do you think? What's your earliest memory of art in your childhood?
I remember being in the fourth grade at Walker Elementary, being in an art show and winning honorable mention.
Okay.
For the school, and that was like I drew a horse.
Okay. Now, where was Walker Elementary? Is that here in town?
Yeah,
okay.
South Memphis.
Okay. And so it was through your school. Did you remember being in the class with the teacher?
Yeah, I was the only one to win. It was throughout the whole school, but I remember winning honorable mention.
Okay, and you were saying it was a drawing of a horse.
What did you say?
And you said it was a drawing of a horse?
Yeah, drawing of a horse.
Okay. Now, were you around horses? What was the connection with horses?
I wasn't around horses. It's just something that I drew. And I used to draw, but I never really, that was my first, time winning something, and that started me off.
Okay. And you said that you had been making drawings before. What kind of drawings were you making before you drew this horse that got honorable mention?
I used to draw this man with a knife in his, a man with a knife. That's all I remember. I don't have any copies of that, but I still do have a horse though.
Okay. Now, this man with the knife, were you looking at like comic books? Were you looking at album covers?
Yeah, it was through comic books.
Okay. Now, what kind of comic books were you reading when you were a kid?
I was a big Spider-Man fan, X-Men, big Marvel guy.
Okay. Now, I think the list of artists who were influenced by those particular series of comics is really long, and I think we all sort of like it for different reasons. What do you think it was that drew you to Spider-Man in particular?
Man, I don't know. It was the comic books. It was a electric company.
Yes.
It was he was just inundated throughout my childhood. It was always Spider-Man.
Right. Now, what about the X-Men? What was it that drew you to them? Because they were a little more unknown. They weren't in the mainstream in the way that Spider-Man was.
Well, it's something about Wolverine.
For sure.
He was the main X-Men that anything Wolverine now. Like I went in Blockbuster, which has been a long time ago. I was in Blockbusters in DC, and I was dating this chick, and we went in Blockbuster, and we were ordering movies and all that, and they had an X-Men action figure, and I still got that. So
Right.
just loving the X-Men and loving Wolverine, and I love Cyclops and what's the guy?
Angel.
New Orleans with the card.
Oh yeah, Gambit.
Gambit. So yeah, I just love the X-Men, and you know what? I still do love the X-Men. If you put on an X-Men comic on the TV, I'm gonna be watching that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Now, thinking about that, when you were a kid, did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I
Okay.
had teachers.
Okay. No, brothers and sisters. Did you have
Oh
siblings?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a brother,
Okay. Older or younger?
younger.
Okay. Also into art or also into comics?
Nah,
Okay.
I was the only one.
Okay.
Actually, we made a comic book when I was a kid. Me and my next door neighbor, which he's deceased now, but we made a comic book. It was what we did.
Right. Now, when you were making these comics as a kid, was this something that your folks were supportive of? Would they encourage you to work with art and comics?
Well, they never encouraged me. They encouraged me in the end, but it was nothing that they wish me good for.
Right. Now, what about the other kids in the neighborhood? You were saying that you worked with a next door neighbor on a comic.
Yeah.
What about for me, art was a great way to connect with other kids in school. Kind of one of the only ways for me to connect with other kids in the school. How about for you?
No, I connected with the next door neighbor, but he was the only one that really, got me going. I really, when I got into the arts, it was me by myself. So
Right.
now there were kids in the neighborhood. There were kids who could draw, and we used to go against each other. But it was just me by myself, really.
Okay, now wait, hang on. So you were saying that you guys would go up against one another? Like, what did that look like? What did you guys do?
It would just be like it would be like I would draw something and he would draw something, and people would say, "Well, his look better, that
Right.
kind of deal."
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. That this is the first time that anybody's ever mentioned that. We used to call it a draw off, and when I was a kid, we used to do the same thing. And there would be a bunch of people, and they would say like a shark, and then the two kids would sit down and they would try and draw the coolest shark that was possible. And then, they would say, okay, yeah, like you were saying, so-and-so won. And then we would change pieces of paper, and then someone else would yell out, something else, like Wolverine or whatever, and we had to make the drawing of Wolverine.
Nah, it was never. Now, there was one guy that really encouraged me, but, they used to say he could draw and all that, but I felt like I was better than him. But remember those things in the magazines that you could draw and draw the pirate and draw the.
Yeah, for sure.
I used to draw those and send them back, but I don't remember them sending nothing back to me.
Right. Okay, so you were there at Walker Elementary, and then you had sort of gotten some praise for doing the drawing of the horse. Now, once you had gotten that award, it sounds like that was something that it's sort of a touchstone for you, getting that award. Now, what started happening after that?
Well, after Walker, I went to Lanier Junior High.
Okay.
Kept on. And I had a good art teacher that really encouraged me there.
Okay, now who was it?
And I can't remember her name, but I remember her face.
Quiz.
I can't remember her name, but I remember her face.
Okay.
And I remember drawing one of Charlie's angels.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
and that was big. And I drew Charlie's Angels, and she brought a guy in to encourage me. I can't remember his name,
Okay.
but he helped me out. And I remember drawing Charlie's Angels, and you know what? I used to draw all of the special stuff for the school, like we made a paper mache waltz. That's what I made her.
Okay.
You know, and they thought that was great. And but after that, I went to Whitehaven, and I was still into the drawing, and they were pushing me, and then I got into mechanical drawing. That was big then.
Okay.
And
now, so there at Whitehaven, when you were taking those classes, now were you doing pretty well in your other classes, or was art sort of the thing that occupied all of your attention, and you did really well in it, and everything else was kind of regular?
Well, with commercial drawing, they had these classes that you could take, and I ended up taking the highest class you could take in the 10th grade. So after 10th grade, they didn't really have anywhere for me to go. So with mechanical drawing, we did a lot of buildings and stuff like that. So that's how I went. That's how I ended up at the University of Memphis, taking architecture.
Okay.
Instead of drawing.
Okay.
But
yeah,
I ended up not liking that architecture because it was in a technology building, and I felt lost. So I switched over to art, and they just got me going.
Right. Well, I mean, when you said that you were doing these mechanical drawings, I mean, thinking about the kinds of things that I know you for, you know, much rougher and much rawer and more sort of flow and state of a stream of consciousness drawings and paintings. I mean, to me, it seems like it's a totally different part of your brain. I know you said that you didn't feel at home in the technical part of the University of Memphis, but like when you were taking the technical drawing classes in high school, was that something that felt interesting and sort of promising and challenging for you?
No, I was in technology maybe about a year or two.
Okay.
Maybe about 2 years, and I would realize this just really wasn't what I wanted to do. So I switched over. I remember they made a big deal about me switching over. You know, changing majors and going from technology to art was, I guess it was foreign to them, but it was natural to me.
Right.
So it's just something that I had to do.
Right. So now you were taking these classes at the University of Memphis after you finished at Whitehaven.
It was Memphis State then.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was Memphis State then. Okay. So, but now, what was that transition like going from Whitehaven to Memphis State at the time?
It was natural as far as, because you know, I was thinking I was going to be an architect. That's what I was thinking. So I won all these awards. I won AXO, and I went to Boston and all of that. And you know, I showed my drawings and I did these big drawings, and they were good and they were cool, but it just really didn't. It really didn't do nothing for me.
Right, right. Now, when you were younger, like you were saying that you had gone to when you were in this program and for different contests or for different meetings, you had gone to Boston. Was travel something that you had done earlier? Where did your family travel when you were a kid?
Nah, my family didn't travel. Going to Boston was the first and only trip that I had gone on.
Okay.
But that was with Expo.
Okay.
And that was cool.
Okay, now wait, I'm not totally sure if I know what Expo is. What is Expo?
Expo is it's a leadership award that goes to the NAACP.
Okay.
and it's something that's awarded through the NAACP.
Okay, okay, and then this was through the program there at Memphis State.
No, this Whitehaven.
Oh wow, okay, so you ended up going
Wait,
to.
yeah, this is high school and all that.
Okay, okay. Wow, that's amazing to be able to travel to Boston when you were in high school. Did you get to go to museums and things like that?
No, I didn't get to. No, no, I don't really. No, I got a problem with museums. So
Okay. Now, what about like when you were in high school? Like, I know part of my high school experience was, once a year or so, they would pile the kids in the art classes into the big bus, and we would go to the Brooks Museum, or we'd go to the Dixon or something like that. Was that something that you guys did when you were there at Whitehaven?
no, we didn't. For some reason, we didn't do field trips and all that.
Okay.
So art was just something that was in me.
Okay. Now, when you were taking these classes in high school, were they showing you art? Would they have books and things like that to talk to you about different artists, or what kind of things were you looking at and thinking about in those high school classes?
Well, I had an art teacher in high school
Okay.
that used to show me art, and we would do different. We would do like Stenello. I can't think of the name of it now. I can't. We used to do all this art stuff,
Okay.
and the teacher used to just kind of turn me on my own, and I would just art was just good for me. It was just something. I was known as the artist,
Okay.
and so, but also in high school, I took this mechanical drawing class,
Mm-hmm.
and I was the number one student for that too. So I had an interest in mechanical drawing too. So
Okay. Now, when you were saying, when you were in high school, you felt like they just sort of set you free, and you knew that art was the thing that you wanted to do. What do you think it was about art? I mean, I think we're all sort of drawn to different things. Like when you say art, were you thinking about drawing? Were you working on some paintings? Were you working on collage? What kind of things were you working on?
it was mostly drawing.
Okay.
I didn't get into painting until later
Okay.
when I got to the University of Memphis
Okay.
when I met George Hunt.
Okay. Now, what kind of things were you drawing in high school? I mean, aside from the horse and some of the things that they had you draw for school.
I used to draw a lot of writings in high school,
Right.
and but I remember in college I drew my girlfriend. I remember that being significant.
Okay. And then what was it about the painting or the drawing of the girlfriend that made it significant?
She was in school,
Okay.
and she wanted me to draw a picture of her, and I still have that, but I don't know what it is
Okay.
because I don't throw nothing away.
Right. Okay, now you said that once you got to Memphis State, you started painting, and then you said that when you were working with George Hunt, how was it that you were connected with him? Was he teaching there at the time?
No, he has a son who I was good friends with. He turned me on to Mr. Hunt. He was like, "Well, my dad is a painter,"
Right.
and so he turned me on to Mr. Hunt, and that's where everything started.
Okay, now wait. How did you meet George Hunt's son? Was this through school?
He didn't go to the same high school,
Okay.
but Callan introduced me to Mr. Hunt, and Mr. Hunt ran an art program, and that got me in the art program. So it was a summer program, and so I was in summer school, and so I had to choose between summer school and art, and I chose art.
Right.
And Mr. Hunt sent me on my way.
Now, it's funny.
Now,
I met George Hunt a couple of times. Once at an opening at the Memphis Center for Contemporary Art, but I think I've only met him a handful of times. But I remember him being a really charismatic man and really fun and super excited about art and sort of had an infectious love for art. What was it that drew you to him, or what was it about him that clicked for you?
well, he was like a art father figure to me, and so he would never tell you what to do, but he just tell you just do it.
Right.
So that was his thing, and so I worked with him for about 14 years in the summer program,
Okay.
and so everything that he did, I did it. So what had happened was before I graduated, I was just into the art,
Right.
and so I graduated, and I came up with this plan that I was going to do my art, and it was going to take me somewhere.
Right.
And so for 3 years, I just painted and painted and painted. And so by that time, I had graduated. And so my thing was, I always wanted to go to art, to graduate school, because that they told me that that's how you become a professional painter.
Right.
And so I painted and painted, and so my goal was to get to the Art Institute in Chicago or get to Yale.
Right.
And those were my goals. And I got an interview to both of them, which was crazy. I got an interview to both schools, and I went to Yale first, and I was like, this don't seem like the place for me.
Right.
And then I went to the Art Institute, and I was like, this is it.
Okay. Now, just to pull back a little bit and to go back to working with Mr. Hunt. So you were saying that you worked with him in the summertime. Eventually, did you become sort of like a teacher through this program, or was it mostly?
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, I taught art. He had these classes that people were in, and he taught art. And so I taught art, and it was great. We was at different high schools in the city, like went to Carver, Booker T, different parts at Carver.
Okay.
But went to Booker T first, and we did murals around the city. I was a little too late to start on the murals, but they did murals around the city.
Okay. Now, again, with Mr. Hunt, now you were saying, whatever he did, you did. So, like, what kind of things do you think you picked up from his studio practice? He has his paintings are so rich and so vibrant. What do you think? What was the thing that drew you to him and to his paintings?
Well, he would do these ads. It was like we would do these. We used to do stuff for Shelby State because they sponsored our art program. So we would filter in stuff through Shelby State. Like if a woman over the Shelby State program would sponsor our art, we would do stuff for her.
Okay.
So we would do buttons and pins and T-shirts and stuff like that. And, it was cool.
Now, what was the setup like? Was it there at his studio, or was there another place where you guys worked?
We worked at the high schools like Carver and BTW.
Wow. Okay.
And we would take the stuff over to Shelby State.
Okay. Now, when you were working at these high schools, I would imagine there was a lot of interactions between you and these other students, and you talked about how Mr. Hunt sort of became a kind of art father figure. Was that something that was interesting to you in terms of you working with these younger kids?
Well, it was about 40 students in the summer youth program.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And I was over like 10, and somebody else was over 10, and somebody else was over 10. And Mr. Hunt was just He just ran the program.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of things would he have you guys do?
We would do ads like uh like he had me design this mural at East High School.
Okay.
So I had to draw it up, and we would take 10 students over, and we would draw the mural,
Wow.
paint
Okay.
the mural.
Okay. Now, you were saying that you were doing that along with Mr. Hunt and some other people. Who were some other people that you were working with?
A guy that was over photography was, wow, I can't think of his name. George something. His name was George too.
Okay.
I can't think of his name.
Okay.
But he was over the photography part. It was different sections of art,
Okay.
and I was over the drawing part.
Okay. Now, what about with your time at Memphis State? What kind of classes were you taking there? Like you were saying, you started off in the technical drawing and then started off thinking about architecture, but then eventually you switched over to art. What kind of classes were you taking there?
I took art. You kind of start out from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It was an art teacher named Jim Neighbors.
Okay.
I think that's his name.
Okay.
And he was like, he thought everything I did was great. So he was great to latch on to.
Okay.
He was a student. He's a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I took this watercolor class, and I must have just blew the whole class out the water. I was just great in that class. Figure drawing, and I was just great in art.
Okay. Now, were there? I mean, for me, one of the things that was really great about going to college was being around all of the other people who were in the classes, and then also being exposed to lots of different kinds of art. What about for you? Was that impactful for you at all?
Yeah, it was a great environment. I remember going to class every morning. It was like a new adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It was like everything that I had learned in technology, I had forgot about that. But it was just great going to class, and it was an adventure going to class.
For sure. Now, were there other teachers that were important for you, or other groups of students that you also interacted with that were kind of important for you?
I remember the Bednose. They were a husband and wife team that I really didn't get along with, but I remember them, the Bednose.
Okay.
And then, of course, I think his name was Jim Neighbors. He was just great. Man, it was just great going to class every morning, and it was great. It was great.
Now, what was it that made it so great? I mean, because one of the reasons I asked this, Frank, is that I'm a teacher too, and so I always want to be great, and I always want to be one of those teachers that students, years down the road will say, "Oh man, he was great," and so I'm always looking for things to steal or some tips to be a better teacher. And so, what were some things that you think of that Jim did that were so good?
He was an entertaining guy.
Mm.
He wasn't like the regular teacher.
Right.
But we used to go in his class, and we would sit in his class, and time would just go by so quick. The 3 hours in class would just go by so quick.
Now, what about in your classes? Were there other students that you got to be friends with and that you enjoyed being around and seeing their work too?
Yeah, it was. I took a pottery class from Nancy White.
Mm-hmm.
She was great. That was interesting. Matt Greeley was great. I took a sculpture class from him.
Right.
The art building was just great, man. It was great.
Right. It's still funky, and it's still old and kind of beat up, and for sure, it definitely still attracts weirdos like us. and it's still a just kind of a crazy little environment. Okay, so the art. Now, all this time when you were there at Memphis State and University of Memphis, you were still working with Mr. Hunt, right?
Yes, yes.
Now, what about some other things that were going on in town? Like I remember going to see George Hunt's show there at Memphis Center for Contemporary Art. Were there other things that were going on in town that were important or sort of pivotal for you in terms of being connected to the community?
Well,
Like, were there other places to show or other places to see art or anything
I
like that?
remember I remember Mr. Hunt set me up with my first show at the Black Art Alliance over on Bellevue,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
I remember setting up about 15 drawings. But this was before I went to the Art Institute,
Okay.
and so but going to the Art Institute, I was still a part of Memphis
Hmm.
and everything, but the Art Institute kind of released a whole different part of me, and just set me off to a whole different art.
Right. Now, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about that show that you had at the Black Art Alliance. Now, and you were saying it was maybe about 15 or 20 pieces. What was that space like? And what did you feel like a lot of pressure to have an awesome show at this event?
It wasn't pressure to do the work; it was pressure just having the show. I
Right.
remember being late for the show, but it's an old fire fire department. That the building is an old fire department
Okay.
that was donated from the city to the Arts Alliance, and um, so it's not set up for an art show, but that's just the way it is.
Right. Now, who else was this Black Art Alliance? Was this a place that you had been to before to see shows? Was this? I mean, obviously, this
No,
was
it was just something that Mr. Hunt introduced me to, and
okay.
I just went on with it.
Okay. And then, what kind of things did you have in that show? You were saying you had some drawings and some paintings. What kind of imagery were you working with at the time?
Uh, I can't even remember. I can't. I know it was mostly black, art. It was mostly black stuff, but I can't remember what I showed.
Okay.
It was big stuff though. I did. I was working kind of big then.
Okay. Now, when you say big, how big are you talking about?
30 by 30,
Okay.
30 by 24,
Right.
stuff like that.
Okay. That sounds good. And then you were saying you were mostly doing, or there were a lot of drawings in the show. Now, were the drawings mostly black and white?
Yeah, mostly black and white. I did a little color on it, but I would like I drew this chick from Chicago. I remember drawing, and
Right.
it was a little color on it, but not a lot. But just black and white drawings. I did a lot of drawings there.
Okay. Now, was drawing something that you always sort of felt comfortable with, or when was it that you started feeling really comfortable about making paintings?
Well, I always felt comfortable with my subject.
Okay.
That wasn't no problem. But just drawing people. That's my whole thing. Drawing people, painting people. That's the only thing that I really did was painting and drawing people.
Now, what were the people doing?
The chick from Chicago, I drew it from a photo.
Okay.
She just had a good look,
Okay.
and so I just drew that. Let's see. Just drawing people. Like I like drawing images of women, and I really love nudes
Okay.
for some reason. And but I love drawing. No face is an enemy to me. I just love drawing faces and facial features.
Good. I like to hear that. It's funny. No face is your enemy. I like that. I'm going to use that line. Now, when you were talking about making these drawings, and then you were talking about the figures, now would they be in a place? Would they be sort of about Memphis? Were they about your friends? Were they about people that you knew closely, or were they sort of anonymous? How are you thinking about these people?
I drew this self portrait of all the images, all these black figures that influenced me,
Okay.
and it was just about 15 or 16 images of black men,
Okay.
and like I love cameos, so he was in there, Elijah Muhammad and Dr. King, and people like that.
Now, when you were talking about drawing these people that influenced you, now I mean, I know that all of these figures are particular and historic, and there's libraries written about how important they are. But what was it that, say, like for example, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? What was it that drew you to him, and what kind of drawing or painting did you make of him?
Just draw, just black and white drawings. It's all mostly black and white, but it's just something about you know, Elijah Muhammad was just great to me, and Dr. King was just great, and Malcolm and all these people were great. So I put them all in a big piece, and I drew Michael Jordan and all the girlfriends that I had. I drew them. Actually, when I drew them, they were paintings.
Okay.
So I drew paintings, and when I went to the artist too, I drew this. It had to be 8 feet by 8 feet. I drew this painting of this chick that I was dating and gave it to her and stuff like that.
Right.
It was great.
Now, you were saying you had this show at the Black Art Alliance, and then you ended up going to, you were saying you had applied to Yale and to the School of the Art Institute. Now, how did you, I mean, because when I was in undergrad, I mean, I think everybody knew about the School of the Art Institute, but I didn't even know about Yale until I was in grad school already. How was it through Mr. Hunt, who was talking to you about these other institutions of higher learning?
No, Mr. Hunt didn't talk to me about school, but how did I find out about Yale? Man, I mean, they talk about Yale through school.
Okay.
You know, uh, um, Yale is one of the top schools. So I said, I want to go to the top school.
Right.
And so everybody was like, "Oh, you're gonna get in. You're gonna get in." I was like, "I don't think y'all understand how hard it is to get in here." But I got an interview up there. It was wild, and but I didn't like it.
Okay.
I didn't like it set up. I got an interview, and we talked about the people that influenced me. John Michelle, Basquiat, and I had drew this painting of him. I drew this picture of him, and but then when I went to the art institute, it was all great. It was funny, and it was great. I mean, it was cold, but it was like this place for you.
Right. No, you were saying that you were talking about the artists that were influencing you, and you mentioned Basquiat, and I think a lot of us are attracted to his work, and a lot of us really love him. What was it about Basquiat's work that spoke to you in particular?
I think the thing about Basquiat work that attracted me, everybody else thought he was just great. I mean, I think he good, but he ain't the number one artist for me.
Okay.
I mean, uh, uh, you know, I, I like people like Michael Ray Charles and the guy out of Seattle, black guy out of Seattle. I can only think of Michael Ray Charles right now.
No,
Uh,
how did Michael Ray Charles get on your radar? I didn't really even know about Michael Ray Charles at all until, God, I was maybe in my 30s when I was working with Elliot Perry on a show. And I remember Elliot has a really great piece of his in his collection. How did you know about Michael Ray Charles? I mean, was this something that you were being exposed to in school or through magazines or books?
well, when I was at the Art Institute, they used to turn us on to everybody.
Okay.
You can imagine everybody being you turn on. And I saw Michael Ray Charles and a light went off in my head. I was like, wow.
Now, what was it about his work that turned you on?
The dealing with racial stereotypes, it's kind of like what I dealt with, but I didn't deal with on that level. He just took it to a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. And so, man, it was great.
Right. Now, how was it that you were being exposed to these different people in Chicago? Was it through art history classes? Was it in the studio classes, in the graduate seminar, in the museum?
It was all of that.
Yeah.
It was studio classes. They would always talk about. Not everybody would talk about Michael Ray Charles. I'm trying to think. Somebody gave me a brochure on Michael Ray Charles, mm-hmm. and it just lit a match up under me. I was like, wow, he was teaching it in Texas at Austin.
Okay.
And so of course, it's this artist in New York. I can't think of his name. I'm terrible with names.
Me too.
And he was big in the Harlem Renaissance, and I remember writing him, and I would do these postcards, these elaborate postcards, and send them in the mail. And so I sent it, Elder. Damn, I can't think of his last name. It's Elder something, but I sent it to the studio, and I didn't think none of it. And years later, Derek Fourjour was at his studio and saw the card, and he had it hanging up in his studio. I was blown away.
Oh, that's wild.
Blown away.
So now,
blown away.
No, you were talking about going from Memphis State to the School of the Art Institute. I mean, that's such a huge shift. I mean, not just in terms of the kind of city that it is, but also the kind of program that it is. It's so huge and so, not super famous, and famous for all kinds of really great reasons. And so when you got up there, I mean, to me, it seems like it would just be a huge shift in terms of pressure. Was it more pressure filled when you got up there? How was the transition for you?
Well, it wasn't pressure as far as the work, because the work, I don't know if you know about me, but I work constantly. It was no pressure about the work. It was only pressure dealing with people in the school system and dealing with race and culture, and it's this whole thing about being black at a white institution. And I don't know if you know about that, but it was always a fight with the race thing.
Right. Now, was that something that you encountered when you were at the University of Memphis?
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! It was the worst. University of Memphis was the worst place to go as far as art.
You mean
I did good in the art program, but being at the University of Memphis was terrible.
Okay. Now, talk to me about that. What sorts of things were difficult in particular about, like, and you said race, dealing with race. Give me some examples.
I took an English class one time, and it's like you had to take a remedial class to get into the English program. And I was like, wow. And You know, it was just a fight. It was like a battle every class you took. I remember being in technology in this one class. The first time you took it, you got an F. Second time you took it, you got a D, and the third time you took it, you might have got a C. But it was everything. Everything was crazy. And then being in the math part, it was terrible. It was I mean, it was terrible. It was terrible. Art was the only thing that really. Richard Knowles was the only thing that really saved me.
Oh, well, that's so surprising. I mean, not because of anything else that you've said. It's just that Dick Knowles is kind of one of those teachers that some people really love him and some people really hate him. He was a really great, important teacher for me. Now, what was it about Dick that worked for you?
Man, Dick Knowles, no matter what class I took, he was like, you a master. You a master. I remember taking a paint class, and he just was like, "Hey, you got it." And then I took a watercolor class, and the teacher was like, "Man, I don't know what it is, but you a master." And I was like, "Wow." It just such a. I remember. Man, I remember being in class. I remember taking all these art classes, and so I'm in a fraternity. So they do this thing where they reward you. They reward the person with the highest grade, and I got the highest grade. I was like shocked. It's been some things that have shocked me, and that was one thing. I was like, wow. That just blew me away. But D Knowles, he was like, look, you a master. Keep it up. Keep it up. And I can't remember the watercolor teacher that I took, but he was even more with D Knowles, like you a master.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good. Now, and you were talking about making that transition to Chicago. Now, what about with Chicago? I mean, I would think that Chicago would be an institution. I mean, I'm not sure what the breakdown is in terms of demographic or anything, but I would imagine that the Art Institute in Chicago would be a much more welcoming and more diverse place than University of Memphis, especially at that time.
Well, University of Memphis was bad, but Art Institute was great.
Oh, okay.
I had a great time at Art Institute.
Okay.
I remember being in a sculpture class. It was great. And all my drawing class, I knocked them out the box. But I remember taking a blues class. It was great. And man, it was the exact opposite. Exact opposite.
Now, I know, I mean, thinking about looking at your work, I know that music is particularly influential in your practice. I mean, it seems like when I look at your paintings, I sort of hear music. And what kind of you were saying that you were taking this class on blues. How did that work for you?
Well, it was great. It was a history of blues, so it wasn't drawn or nothing like that. It was just history of blues.
Oh, I see.
And but I did do a lot of blues artists, but I think most of my work is like everyday people. Mostly, like I do this thing from trash to treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was really trying to get on in a gallery or whatever. But my concentration switched, because galleries were big then. Galleries ain't that big now. And I just look, I just do art for me now. I don't really do it for, like, I remember Chicago had this thing where you sent in this postcard, and they were auctioning it off, and I did it on plexiglass, if you can imagine, which was wild. Which was in the postcards was 5. You know what? I still got a copy of that, but I remember Chicago was a great place. Like the hospitals did this. They bought a piece of mine, put it in the hospital, and it was people from different places that bought my work around the city. So I traveled around the city, and it was great. But I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to have roots there because there was so many artists there and everything. So
now let's back up just a second and thinking about the Art Institute. I mean, my youngest child goes to school there, and for sure, one of the things that I am super envious of is the fact that they're going to school there, that a school that's attached to that museum. What about being there in Chicago with that museum? I mean, I know that must have been really important for you.
Oh yeah, the museum was great. You could go to the museum at any time. It was some nice shows there.
Now, when you're thinking about that, were there any pieces that stood out for you in terms of, or some exhibitions that stood out for you during your time there in Chicago?
I think about Betty Starr. She had a show there, and she introduced her work. She had a seminar. They had these great seminars, and Betty Starr had a seminar. It was great.
Oh,
nothing else really stands out. No, I mean, there was some great shows.
I mean, Betty Starr is pretty great. We can hang out there for a second. Now, what was it about her work that struck you?
How she pieced. It was like my work, but it wasn't like my work. How she would piece together different things in the world into her art.
Right. Now, at that time, when you were there in Chicago, is that sort of when you started working in the way that we might think about your work now, sort of using the collage and using the found objects and mixing those in with the paintings, like you were saying, trash to treasure? Is that sort of when you started thinking about that kind of thing?
It's a progression. It's a progression. My work has evolved over years. It started out being like Jacob Lawrence. Jacob Lawrence was a big influence on me, like Michael Ray Charles. And it's one other artist out of Los Angeles. I'll think of it later on in the conversation if I can think of it.
Okay.
I see his face, but I can't think of. But
so you mentioned Jacob Lawrence. I mean, again, he's such a huge, pivotal, important figure in the history of art, and we all kind of like him for different reasons. What is it about Jacob Lawrence that draws you to him?
Well, he told stories of black folk, and he told stories of black folk at a particular time and age, and that was important to me. Like he did the Migration series, and I was like, wow, to even think of doing a show on the Migration series during that time was great. So, Now,
what about? I mean, I'm with you in terms of the subject matter. It's funny when I approach images. Usually, I approach them formally first, and then I start to think about the story behind them, for whatever reason. But for me, the thing about Jacob Lawrence is he has these crazy, really complicated, energy-filled compositions. And then now that I'm sitting here thinking about your paintings, you have a similar, not a similar way, but your compositions are also particularly explosive and dynamic. I mean, not in the way that Jacob Lawrence's were, but in a totally different way. Were there other things about Jacob Lawrence's energy and freedom that were also attractive to you?
Well, he just, like he did his latest song, I just I was I was I was involved with the way he drew the sewing machine and the
Mm,
way he got down on the. He was just great to me. He
mm-hmm.
was and Charles H. Johnson and man, I'm thinking of this dude in L.A. I don't know why he's such a big influence. And he's big on the national level too.
Okay.
But uh, somebody like Charlie Palmer is great too. I love Vita Shell, so I, I just get off on images and images of people,
Mm, mm,
and that's the only. I mean, I've done buildings and all that, but I really don't do buildings.
mm-hmm.
But just it's got to be an image of a person.
Mm, mm. Okay. Now, to back up a little bit, like we were talking about Betty Saar, and so with Betty Saar's work, and you were talking about how she's taken these objects from pop culture and combining them with her own imagery. Was sculpture ever anything that you were drawn to?
I think I did a little sculpture, but I really didn't have the patience with sculpture, so it really wasn't something that I got into.
Right? Okay. For me, it was always about storage. It wasn't about the patience. It was always about what am I going to do with these big things.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Now, what other kinds of things were you looking at or thinking about during that time when you were in Chicago? Because I mean, it wasn't just the Art Institute, but there was also the city itself. What else was going on there that was impactful for you?
I took a Haitian class from this lady, and she just opened my eyes up. And ritualistic art, like the flags and Haitian art, and I think I borrow a little bit. I don't borrow from Haitian art, but some of my art looks like that Haitian art, that kind of found art. It's just um I had a lot of shows in Chicago. I
Mm.
would have a show in somebody's bathroom, which is funny.
Right?
But I had I would have shows at people's houses, and I remember this lady had this dinner party, and she featured my work, and I just brought my work, and she and people bought the work.
Mm. Well, I mean, Chicago has always had such a great connection to the arts and always such a really great do it yourself attitude towards being able to show work. I know, the apartment galleries and the different kinds of exhibition spaces are kind of famous there in Chicago. When you were there, were there other artists who were making work that you really enjoyed or that you found like clicked for you?
I can't remember any artist that I worked with
Hmm. No, what
that
about
just
that program? That program is such a fantastic group of people that are drawn from all over the world, and they all kind of come there to Chicago to work together in this program. Were there classmates of yours that were important?
um I know Lauren Kelly was my number one person that just really turned me on. She's in New York now.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a couple of artists I can't think of the name right now. But
Mm-hmm. Now, what about Lauren? Let's stay there for a second. What was it about Lauren's work that drew you, or Lauren as a person that drew you to them?
man, she's out of Houston. Um, she is a sculptor.
Mm-hmm.
She did these things with chicken, believe it or not, with chicken. Uh, she would mold stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So she was great.
Nice. Now, just a second ago, you were talking about you had taken an acting class when you were there in Chicago.
No, I never took an acting class.
What was it you were talking about? Where you took a class with somebody and it really opened you up, and then that sort of led you to the Haitian art.
Oh, she's a teacher. She taught she taught a Haitian art class,
Ah, okay, okay. I'm
and
sorry.
I would see the flags, and she would have a lot of altars.
Mm.
I think my work leans to altars, and I got a collector out of New Orleans that has bought some of my altar like pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the doors that I did, and you know, but yeah, she she turned me on to a whole lot of stuff.
No, this was
And
one of the teachers who was there.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
her name was Marilyn Holbert.
Okay. And then you were saying you were thinking about some of your pieces like altars. Talk to me a little bit about that. When you're making those pieces, how are you thinking about them? How do they work for you?
Well, with altars, it's always something that people have. Like the dresser could be an altar,
Mm-hmm.
and they will have like combs and different a picture of their grandmother. And so I'm thinking about my art in that way because the the, the particular painting could end up being on the altar.
Mm. Okay.
So
Now
so
was
yeah,
Now, when you're making these pieces that are kind of like altars, are they made for particular people or made for particular events? Or are they, how does that work?
it, it's of all that.
Mm,
It could be for a person. I do a portrait of a person. I do something for an event. Uh, I'm always doing stuff on health related things like diabetes and AIDS and um, sickle cell.
mm-hmm,
My pieces are always dealing with that. And when I used to be the artist at Caritas, I used to do a lot of art and health related pieces.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, when you were talking about being there in Chicago, I think you said that you didn't really want to set up roots there because they have so many artists. Now, when was it that you moved back to Memphis?
I moved back to Memphis in 2000, but I still went to Chicago for the last 10 years.
Okay.
So about 2010, I was still in Chicago.
Mm-hmm,
And, I do a little stuff in Chicago, but mostly my whole, how people, how artists, they get to a certain point and they want to go, then they want to go to New York or they want to go to LA.
mm-hmm.
My whole thing has always been being in Memphis, coming back to Memphis, doing stuff about Memphis.
Now, what do you think it is? I mean, obviously, we're all sort of drawn to Memphis. We're here. What do you think it is for you that draws you to Memphis?
I think it's my folks. It's the culture here in Memphis. I'm just a Memphian.
Mm-hmm. And then when you were talking about coming back to Memphis and when you came back in 2000, what kind of things were you doing when you came back to Memphis?
I was doing basically the same thing because in my mind, I'm constantly going. I'm constantly moving. Up until I got sick was when I stopped working.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I got sick in 2015, so that was the end of my big time in keeping it moving.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, when you came back to Memphis in 2000, and you were talking about sort of going back and forth between Chicago and Memphis for those 10 years, what would you do when you were there in Chicago? Did you have friends who were there and you would stay with them?
Yeah, I would stay with friends.
Okay.
I would stay about a week and then paint for about a week. And I remember painting this pregnant lady. I was there for about a week, and it was a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Cause see, some of the people that I still went to school with was still in school.
Okay. And then when you would go up there and you would stay with your friends from the School of the Art Institute?
Art Institute. I had a friend that went to DePaul too, so I would
Okay.
stay with him.
And then were there other artists who were in the city who were important for you there in Chicago?
Yes, Michael Barlow. He's a he teaches at Art Institute too.
Okay.
He was big with me too, so.
Okay. And then what you were talking about how when you went from Memphis to Chicago and things sort of blew up, like in your brain, what does that look like? What do you think? What was the big shift in terms of your practice or your working as an artist that kind of blew up? Was it the size? Was it the complexity? Was it the what do you think it was?
Uh, I don't think I ever blew up in my mind.
Okay.
I always, I, I, I mean, I just try to stay humble with the pieces, and you know, I've done over 10,000 pieces, but I've given away a whole lot of art.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you said that you made like 10,000 pieces and you've given away a lot of art, what do you think? What do you think? What's this stuff that we're doing? What do you think? What is art in terms of thinking about your life and your practice? What do you think it's for? What do you think we're doing this for?
That's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, as we get older, we start thinking about that kind of thing. It's like, well, what is this? What is all this stuff that we're doing?
You know, I had a show in Milwaukee in September, and we were sitting around talking to these artists, and just thinking about the work and what are we doing? Good question. What are we doing? I sit around with Chuck Johnson and Keon, and I think about what are we doing? And so it's this lady that's writing a book on me, Johnny Mayberry. She's out of Jackson, Mississippi, at Tougaloo College. That's a place where I've been a fixture at.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? I'm gonna have to ask. You know what? That's my question of the day. What are we doing?
Well, I mean, because for me, I mean, especially when you said you give a lot of it away. I mean, for me, thinking about making art, I always just sort of thought making it was the important part. Me being active in the studio and me sitting down and figuring this stuff out and making images and solving problems. I always sort of thought that was sort of what it was for. And then years and years ago, I traded a piece with a friend of mine, Chelsea, who was a teacher at Iowa when I was there. And Chelsea passed away suddenly, and she had a brain hemorrhage, and she died. And then several years later, I was going to go up to the University of Wisconsin, and I was going to give a lecture, like you do. And I got a message from this guy named Trent Miller, and Trent said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I was good friends with Chelsea, and that when Chelsea passed away, they sold a lot of the art that she owned, and I bought your painting. And so I have your painting here at the house, and if you wanted to come by, we could visit." And he was also a painter, and we had a lot of other friends in common. And so I went to his house, and sure enough, there was this painting of mine that was there, and it was the painting that I had traded with Chelsea. And then there was a piece of Chelsea's there, and there was a piece of his there, and a piece by some other friends of mine. And there was something that was really powerful about seeing those paintings in that space, living a life that was totally different from the one that I had imagined for. I thought I was just going to live with my friend Chelsea. And so there was something about those paintings being in that room way up there in Milwaukee or Madison, Wisconsin, that was kind of important and sort of shifted the way I thought about it. And so, like, when you're thinking about your pieces, you were talking about making 10,000 pieces. P.S. That's a whole lot. And you're talking about giving them away. What do you think? Like, how do you imagine the lives of those paintings once you give them to somebody?
Well, I had a friend that passed away in September. I think it was before September. But a friend of mine told me that she had passed away, and so she said that the painting that the girl had bought, they gave it to a friend of mine in Jackson, Tennessee, and so it just made me think about the work that I got in Chicago, the work that I got in Milwaukee, the work that I got in New York, the work that I got in Atlanta, work that I got in Houston, the work that I got in Dallas. I mean, I guess the art takes a journey that you will never go on.
Mm-hmm.
It takes this journey to places that, I guess that's it. It going on a journey that you would never get to go on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, everybody gonna pass away. Everybody got to work. Everybody gonna pass away, and they're gonna pass the work on to somebody, and somebody gonna have to work that don't even know me.
Right.
It's this place in New Orleans. I've been in the place, but then somebody sent me a picture of my painting in the place. I was like, wow. Then I got a friend in San Francisco, got my work up in next to the piano, and I'm like, wow. And I don't know how she got the work. Trust me, I don't know. Cause I got so much work that I can't keep up with all of it. And I try to keep up with all of it, but that was driving me crazy. So now I don't even try to keep up with it. Somebody say, hey, I got one of your pieces. I go, that's good for you. So.
Now, you were saying when you came back to Memphis, you were doing work at Caritas. What brought you to Caritas? I know that was that's where I would see you every once in a while after you came back to town. What was good about Caritas?
Well, a friend of mine called me to Caritas, and they was trying to form some kind of project, whereas an artist would do artwork for this particular health-related. I mean, it wasn't just health-related; it was all related. And so, and they recruited me, and I just took off. I took off.
Now, what was involved there? Was it a place where you had your studio? Was it a place where you taught classes? What was involved with that?
I did all that. I taught classes. I would teach the students, the people in the neighborhood classes. Then my studio was upstairs, and it was just a great thing. And I would take people to the studio, and they would look at stuff, and it was great.
Now, what about for you? Like, in terms of teaching, and you had mentioned that you taught through or with Mr. Hunt in years past. Was there any teaching that was involved when you were there at the School of the Art Institute? Did you teach any classes there?
I taught a Saturday class, but really the students really weren't interested in art. So
okay. And
when I got back to Memphis, I taught a class over at Mississippi Boulevard.
Okay. Now, did that work well for you? For some people, teaching is just not in their temperament. It just doesn't work. I know lots of people who are teachers who really just hate it. What about for you?
I hated it and I loved it. So it really was. I'm really the type of artist. if it's teaching the kids, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do it for no long time, but I'll do it for a short time.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, about 3 years is my max, and then I'm gone.
Okay. And then, what age group were you mostly teaching? Were you were mostly teaching when you came back with Caritas? Was that young adults? Was it elementary?
Young adults.
Okay.
Like third grade through fifth grade.
Okay. And then did that work pretty well for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Nice. Now, when you were talking about being able to come back to Memphis, and you mentioned Vida Shell and you mentioned Chuck Johnson. What about like when you came back to town? Was there a group of artists that you connected with that you felt good about being around, or was it more of like you just kind of go to the studio by yourself and you kind of do your own thing?
Well, I got hooked up with this group called Nia, where I gave them the name Nia from the Art Institute.
Okay.
We had a group. We had a group of art students at the Art Institute called Nia. So I just brought it back and gave it to Memphis. And Vitus was part of it. Lester was part of it. Everyone was part. It was like 19 artists that was part of Nia.
Mm-hmm.
And we would have these shows. And we had a show at Nashville, Tennessee State. Had a show in New York. Had a show in Atlanta, Houston, D.C. type places.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk to me about Nia, because I was in Memphis at that time, and I remember going to see a show that you guys put together at Martial Arts. Now, talk to me about Nia, because I know finding a community is really important for a lot of us artists. And so, talk to me a little bit about did you help form Nia?
Yeah, I helped form it.
Nice.
I came up with the name. Really, Nia was the way black artists could get together and have shows. Because we really went places where they were having shows, so we would get together and have shows.
Right. Now, you were saying Vitus and Lester and some other folks were in it. When it first started, was it that big, or when it first started, was it just like a couple of folks hanging out?
It started out about 19 people.
Oh my gosh!
And then it kind of filtered down.
Yeah. And then, and you were saying it was a way for you guys to have shows. Was there also a social component to it? Would you guys get together and do studio visits and talk to one another about your art?
Yeah, we had studio visits, and we would sit together and watch games and stuff like that. And we would just sit around and talk. Mm. And then, driving to New York would create this whole funnel of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were thinking about, when I'm thinking about Nia early on, would you guys have conversations about art and what you wanted the art to be, or how you wanted Nia to function in town?
Yeah, but some of it would happen, some of it wouldn't happen.
Okay.
So, I don't know if you know, but, being an artist is hard.
Right.
But being a black artist is a whole nother kid and caboodle, so.
For sure.
But it's all good. It's all good, though.
Well, tell me about that. I think one of the things that I'm real interested in doing this project is hearing from lots of different people and hearing points of view from a lot of different people. And, I'm a white guy, and so I have a particular point of view. And so I know that when you said, being an artist is hard, for sure. And then I know when you said being a black artist is also a whole nother thing. I would love to hear about how that worked in terms of, your experience as a black artist coming back to Memphis from Chicago.
Well, being a black artist, like when I go to museums, I hate museums because it's all white artists.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They will have a couple of black artists, but it's not a representation of us.
Right.
And so I remember going in about 50 art shows
Mm-hmm.
and just walking right out because it's some BS. And it just disappointed me. I would go to the Whitney and it just wouldn't be no representation of us.
Mm.
And but being in Memphis, it's really not an art place. It's not an art town. Like I tell people, Memphis has 2 black artists in it. And number one is Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt is a whole artist by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are the rest of it.
Mm.
And people be like, wow. But that's just how it is. And
were there artists, black artists for you that were important in terms of thinking about coming back to Memphis? I mean, you mentioned the folks in NIA. Were there people in NIA that were particularly inspirational for you?
But when I came back to Memphis, NIA hadn't formed.
Okay.
And it formed soon after I got there.
Okay.
But you know, Vitus. Me and Vitus travel around the world. It's crazy. We travel around and we got a lot of funny stories and hilarious stories.
Right.
So, but
no,
you know,
let's stay with Vitus for a second. What was it about Vitus that clicked for you?
Man, Vitus, just the struggle that we went through to find our work. Like he would have a show in Nashville, and I would go up there with him, or he would have a show at in Ohio. He had a show in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have a show, but I went with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm cheering for him just like he's cheering for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, man, we had a ball.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I wish we could write a book.
What was it about, or what is it about Vitus's work that you like? P.S.
He worked with people.
Yeah, yeah.
He's from Louisiana, so of course I love Louisiana things with Haitian and voodoo, and I just like his work.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you. I mean, for me, I love how big they are. Usually whenever you see Vitus's pieces, they have this huge big presence, you know, and I love how he mixes the painting with, you know, the photography or the found imagery. I love how he has all of that going. And then also he's just such a painter. You know, you can look at him and you can tell that he just loves paint, and he loves mush and paint and the tactility and the physicality of the paint. You know, he just feels like he's kind of a born painter.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, what about, like, thinking about that group, Nia? I mean, Lester was also a big part of that. I was lucky enough to sit down and meet with Lester and interview him as well. Now, what was it about Lester and Lester's work that worked for you?
Just the spirit of it, and seemed like he was always working, and he was always struggling to be. His ambition was great, and so he was always striving to be like Carol Walker, somebody like that. And I that ain't never been my ambition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So just him striving to be something greater, I was like, that's cool.
I like that way that you were talking about Lester and ambition. That totally sounds right. I mean, to me, when I think about Lester, I think about, he's sort of quiet, but man, when you said that he was always working, every time I go to his studio, I'm always sort of awestruck by the amount of stuff that he has in there, but then also the scale. And then, like you said, ambition. That's such a great way to describe Lester's practice, for sure, a really ambitious maker. I mean, especially now, when I'm recording this, he's got this great show up here at Crosstown. Now, what about, and then you also mentioned Chuck, and Chuck is a big part of why I'm doing this project to begin with. What about Chuck? Was he a part of that early group, Nia, as well?
No, he was never part of Nia. He was in DC then.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I met him later. Hey, he opened me with open arms, so he was great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to me, Chuck is so generous and so thoughtful. What about Chuck's studio work?
I mean, he's generous, and hey, he invites us over to paint. I just like his work.
Me too. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, were there other folks that were a part of that NIA group or a part of your community here that were also important? Like we were thinking about Vitus and Chuck and Lester.
Edwin McSwine. I don't know if you ever met him.
I think that name sounds really familiar. I think I have. He was a part of that NIA group, right?
Right. He passed away though.
Oh, okay. Huh.
He passed away about 5 years ago.
Okay.
The twins was part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of nobody.
Now, what was it about? Now, I mean, to me, Jerry and Terry are such an interesting combination of people to make this, this group, this collaborative group, Twin. What do you think? What do you think they brought to the organization in particular?
Well, they were, black artists in Memphis, and we don't have a voice, so it was trying to find a voice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds right. You mean in terms of their
Well, they were already famous,
right?
So, it's just that they were with us to try to find a voice.
Mm-hmm. And then what do you think? Like, when you're thinking about that group, Nia, and then trying to talk about the voice, I mean, to me, the number of artists that were in it, you were talking about 19, it was such a huge group. Do you think aside from the point of commonality of them all being artists of color in Memphis, do you think there were other things that everybody had in common in terms of the way they worked?
Well, I think there's a whole host of things. Just the city in Memphis, poverty, most people, the imagery with people, and it was a great little group. We used to get together and have meetings and critique, and Darlene Newman was a part of the show. Mm-hmm. Mike Newman was part of this, group. Man, it was a great little group. I hate that we don't meet, but people went in different directions. Like the twins went in their direction. Vice went in his direction, like that. So
right. And so you were talking about working at Caritas and doing the work there with the community. I mean, it sounds like one of the things that you are thinking about in your art practice is the difficulties of being in Memphis and, like you said, poverty, and institutional racism and lots of other the host of other things that make it difficult to be an artist in Memphis. And so when you're working at Caritas, or when you were doing that work at Caritas, or when you were doing that work maybe even with Nia, was that something that you were thinking about as well, being able to help people who were in a similar situation as you?
Yeah, it was all about helping somebody else.
Right.
All trying to nurture somebody and It was all about healing.
Well, talk to me about that. I mean, I'm super curious. I mean, you were talking about earlier the support and the assurance that you got from mentors along the way, you know, whether it was Mr. Hunt or Dick Knowles or some of the teachers at Chicago. But now talk to me a little bit about healing. I'm curious about that. I mean, that seems like that would be a really important thing, you know, that is connected to that earlier question about like, what is it we're doing here? You know, what are we doing? Talk to me about healing a little bit.
Well, it seemed like all of my pieces are dealing with healing and somebody hurt or somebody going through some affliction.
Mm-hmm.
And the Caritas work was dealing with all of that. It wasn't something that they put on me. It's something that I felt a need for. Mm-hmm. It's like this. I even did a series on the thugs and yada yada. You know, that kind of passion that they had, but it was healing. Mm-hmm. And man, it's just the healing and the hurt seemed like that's what I was dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were talking about the healing, I mean, healing is such a huge subject and it's such a huge, wide blanket statement, you know, in terms of thinking about what it does, but to bear down a little bit and to get a little more specific, what kind of healing are you thinking about when you're thinking about with these pieces that you're working on?
Well, right now I'm dealing with diabetes. I mean, I'm dealing with dialysis, healing from that. That's my main focus. Diabetes and dialysis. That's what I'm dealing with now.
Right. And I know that's been super impactful on you in, you know, a million different ways. When you're thinking about making art about it and making art in a way that is helpful or healing, talk to me a little bit about how that works when you're thinking about making art and what it does, how it helps, how it heals.
Well, since I got sick, it's gonna hadn't put an ending because I had a show at University of Memphis and I did do about 15 pieces. But since then, everything has kind of shrunk down. I still do a little work, but it ain't really as important to me as it was because of depression. And I just recently got out of my depression, so hopefully new works will come. But when I was depressed, man, art just didn't mean that much to me. And think about it, somebody that's done 10,000 pieces to doing nothing, and it has depressed me, and I don't really know where to go.
Now, when you were talking about the depression, now was depression something that you had ever had to deal with before you had gotten sick?
Not like I'm dealing with now.
Right.
I mean, of course, I dealt with depression and you know, your family need this and need that, but it's a whole different depression now.
Now, you mentioned that show at the University of Memphis. I got to see that show. It was such a powerful show, and I know that a lot of my students really responded to it, you know, for a lot of the reasons that you were talking about before. And talk to me about doing that show. If I remember right, Lester spearheaded that show, right?
Yeah, Lester spearheaded. Man, that show was like, it was epic. It's 72 pieces, and you know, I had never seen a show with that many pieces. But you know, it was all my work, and it was my proudest moment.
It was an epic show. I mean, and when you were saying that it was sort of your it was amazing to see, all of that work in there. I mean, in the same way that you and I were talking earlier about, what is all of this for? I mean, in some ways, it's a way for us to be able to look back on like things that we've made, these tangible objects, in maybe the way that, I don't know, a banker or a lawyer couldn't necessarily look back on what they've done. I mean, we have these physical objects, we have these paintings, we have these sculptures that we make. And how did that work for you in terms of being able to look at all of that work? I would imagine that it would be both sort of humbling and exciting at the same time. How was it for you?
Man, it was humbling. It, you know, since I've been sick, it just lifted a veil on my face. I really can't really explain to you really what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was just happy to have the show,
Mm-hmm.
and man, it just blew me away.
Right.
It just blew me away.
And then also, I mean, I was unable to make it to the opening, but if I remember right, the pictures of the opening looked like it was sort of a massive celebration as well. I imagine that was really important.
It was a celebration of artists. It was all the Memphis artists, all the Nia artists, all the Memphis people from Tougaloo, all the people that have supported me throughout the years. I just thank everybody for coming out, and the women that I dated. I really couldn't really grasp on the support that I got, but I got a lot of support. But I really couldn't grasp it because I just really couldn't get it.
Right. Now, when you were talking about the being sick and how that has impacted your art making, and so I know you lost your legs, and then how is your sight? Are you able to see well?
Yeah, my eyesight. I mean, I got 20/20 vision.
Okay.
It has gotten bad, but it's pretty good now.
Nice.
Everything, you know what? Everything is on the up. Everything is improving. I really can't tell you how much, but my dialysis is improved.
Okay.
My diabetes, I don't have signs of that.
Okay.
I really turned everything around, but it took a big depression to get it back together.
Right. So now, what is the setup for you now in terms of making things? How are you? Do you have a space there at the house that you're able to work?
Well, I got a little small space by my bed, and that's where I paint.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's where I create. I can't do big stuff like I used to, which I want to,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess it'll come in time.
Okay. Now, what are some things that you're working on? You were saying that you were working on some small things, and I know
I'm really just collecting stuff that I want to work on.
Okay, that sounds
collecting
good.
Images of people, just collecting images of people.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the sketchbook? Like, I recently just went through sort of a long process. My mother had been sick for a long time, and a lot of my work was happening in my sketchbook. What about for you? Is the sketchbook sort of an important place for you in terms of thinking about your studio process?
When I was at the University of Memphis, sketchbook became huge.
Mm.
So if you got I got about 10 sketchbooks that I think are pretty. I mean, they're significant to me. They might not be significant to nobody else,
mm-hmm.
but they're significant to me. So
okay. Now, what is it about the sketchbooks that's working for you that's important? Because I mean,
it shows me the chronological time that I had with the arts.
I like that. I like that idea of the chronological time. Yeah, that sounds good. I like that. Now, when you go back and you look through the sketchbooks, What are some things, just out of curiosity, that you noticed? I mean, I would imagine if you made 10,000 pieces, your sketchbook stash has got to be huge too. What kind of things do you notice when you look back on those sketchbooks?
I did I did a lot of sketches in this sketchbook.
Mm-hmm.
Just the stuff I used to write down. My notes would be meticulous. My notes in history class would it'll be a drawing of the teacher and it'll be something that he said. Or man, my sketchbook was all the phone numbers and it was crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, the thing about the sketchbook is that they sort of become a kind of like when you were talking about that show at the University of Memphis, where everything was there and you could sort of look back on it and you could see all of the things that you had done. I mean, for me, the sketchbook is such a part of that. And then to tie it back to another point of commonality, like I remember going to see, I think Dick Knowles had to write a letter of recommendation for me or something, and I had to go to his house to get it. And I remember seeing his bookshelves, just shelves and shelves filled with those sketchbooks, and how it was sort of awe-inspiring in terms of thinking about that. I mean, I would imagine that would be a similar thing for you as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
When I got sick, my mother cleaned my room up, so they put all of my sketchbooks in a box. So I got it, but I just had to look for it.
Nice.
But also the thing about this show, I could have picked 10 different shows with 70 different pieces, and it would have been just as good.
Right. Yeah. That's the feeling that I got. You know, it's funny when you look at a painting. You know, there's that kind of composition that happens where if you turn your head to the left or to the right, that painting keeps going. For me, that show was kind of like that, where I knew that if I backed up and went into another room that was just as full with just as many of your paintings, I just knew that world kind of went on forever. It was like a
that's the kind of that's the my world is the intro to those paintings that was there.
Right, right. Well, Frank, I think I'm running low on time. They only let me have the room for a little bit, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for meeting with me and working with me on figuring out how to do this telephone thing and getting this recording done. What I'll do is if you want to, I would love to visit and chat sometime in real life. And so maybe we can work out a time where we could do that. And then when I get this recording hammered out and put into a file, I'll send it to you so that you can have it, and I'll keep you posted on this project and how everything's going. But man, I just really wanted to say thank you for meeting with me, and I know you've got a lot going on, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Maybe we can get together in the spring when I can get a ride to wherever and do it like that.
Man, I would love that. That would be fantastic.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Bye-bye.
All right.
And that was the interview with Frank D. Robinson. That interview was recorded on January 7th, 2025. Please join us next week when we have another interview.